Infinity, by its very nature, is forever. And as long as volleyball has existed, the possibilities off a bounce are infinite. The height, the angle, the trajectory, the speed, the power. So many factors dictate where you want the ball to go and where it actually will go.
It's got to be way higher because we expect you to hit. Yeah.
For Thanh Pham, a former algebra teacher, knowing all those calculations guides his coaching philosophy.
I've never known a player to play really well feeling down on themselves. My thought process is more, when do kids play well? When they're feeling happy, when they're having fun, when they're engaged, when they're in the zone, and how can I help them get there? Usually it's through words of encouragement rather than criticisms.
The positivity can be infectious, and it's been essential for the past couple of seasons at St. Thomas, as Thanh guides the Tommies to full-fledged Division I status. UST was a Division III powerhouse, but won just 3 games total last season.
Even though we didn't win as much last year, I felt like it was one of our best years. That might be really weird to say, but who gets to go through this challenge? Nobody. So to take this Division III team and lead them through the Division I the transition process, I couldn't be more proud of our group.
Thang's optimism is rooted in Minnesota, a home he's known pretty much his entire life. But the only reason he's here now is because of what his parents did then.
I love to be the pilot. That's why I voluntarily to join the South Vietnamese Air Force. When I was in high school, I dream about the Air Force. Every time I see the airplane, fly in the sky, I look at the airplane and I look until the airplane disappear in the cloud.
Thanh Pham flew in the Vietnam War in the early 1970s. When the North Vietnamese captured the South Vietnamese capital of Saigon in 1975, it signaled the end of the conflict. But it was just the beginning of Yen's escape with his wife and children, including 5-month-old Thanh.
I told her that I have to leave because if I stay home, then the communists, they call VC, they kill me or they put me on jail. So I got to leave, have no choice.
We run to that area, that's the airplane, loading people into the airplane.
I put whole family in airplane, include my mom, my wife's sister and brother in airplane.
So we all come into the airplane, and he still, by the time the door in the back is closed, I see a little bit, he's still down there. Yeah, and we left without him.
They go without me because I don't have time to get into the airplane at the same time. So they left me. Very few airplanes left, but many people want to get out. But finally I saw the another airplane start engine, I run quick, and I get in that airplane.
Yen and his family were separated, with no way of knowing where they were going, or if they had even made it out alive. Yet somehow, some way, Yen and his wife Suen found each other just a few weeks later on Con Son Island, just off the coast of South Vietnam.
When I was sleeping, my wife wake me up. Then I so surprised, how can my wife know where I am? Then she come to exactly where I was, in the big base like that.
Back then there were no registries of who was, in a refugee camp, and let alone my mom finding the exact bunker that my dad is sleeping in.
A few months later, the family was sponsored by members of the First Lutheran Church in Albert Lea, Minnesota, and made the trip across the Pacific.
All the people, the American people, that come out there and welcome us.
We left Vietnam with empty hands. We left the house behind, the car behind, everything behind, because of the war happened so quick.
What they didn't leave behind was their gratitude and determination. Both Yen and Suen worked a variety of jobs to provide for their children, including running multiple restaurants in the Twin Cities.
Majority of my childhood was at a restaurant, and so either I was washing dishes, or I was waiting tables, or I was waiting for my mom to come home from that.
When I was married, I don't know how to cook anything. But when you get into yourself, you have to do it, you just do it. Thank God I did that. So we run the restaurant for 20 years.
In order to get what you want, you have to work for it. There's no shortcuts. And that's one of the best things that I feel like my parents have taught me is there are no shortcuts. If you want it, you have to work for it, and it is attainable.
Nearly 50 years later, Thanh admits he has no memory of actually escaping Vietnam with his parents and siblings. But he was able to return to his native land as an adult and learn more about his culture and extended family. From the grounds of Saigon to the courts in St. Paul, the possibilities have always been infinite for Thanh Pham. But he's on the one and only path he's ever known because his parents paved the way.
When I went back to Vietnam, I could see what my life would be like, and it's nothing like it is now. The poverty over there and the hardships that people face compared to what I get to do, yeah, you're right. Like it's night and day comparison.
When he saw my work at the restaurant, every day coming home and bring the food home for him, I just wish them to be better at the life, don't have to work hard like me. That's what I wish.
Many things that happened to my life so dangerous. I almost died, but I believe that God saved me. So I always, pray and thank God for helping my family.
You talk about countries and what makes America great. It is a land of opportunity, and it could be a cliche, but we actually got to live it. So I think that's the fun part that people don't see, is that when people say you can do anything in America, you literally can do anything in America.
All right, David, great story with Thanh, but his parents are the other heroes in this story, right?
They really had to grind to make life in America work. When they arrived here, they had $20, literally just $20. They lived with their sponsor family for a little bit until they could afford an apartment. But with those $20, they bought a sewing machine. Suen kind of learned how to sew, became a seamstress, opened a seamstress business. They eventually parlayed that into running a couple of restaurants, even though, as you heard, Suen didn't even know how to cook. But she and her husband Yen found a way to make it work. In fact, they would trade shifts at the restaurant because they couldn't afford a babysitter at the time for their kids. So just a remarkable story in perseverance and determination for Thang's parents.
Absolutely. And Thanh was very young when a lot of this was going on. But when did he kind of realize the circumstances of how special it was when he came to America?
Honestly, in school. All of us learn about the Vietnam War in school, late elementary, early middle school, and he didn't really think it applied to him. He kind of thought he was, quote unquote, born and raised in Minnesota. But when he learned about the Vietnam War, he started asking about his culture and his heritage, started asking his parents about the circumstances in which they came from, and that's when he kind of got more in tune with the history and the amazing story of how his parents escaped. It's not necessarily a story that Thanh likes to advertise, but when he's asked about it, he'll talk about it, and he's incredibly proud of his heritage, incredibly proud of his parents, and they are an American success story.
Yeah, great story. Appreciate it. David Brown.
This has been Midco Sports Magazine, presented by Build Your Base with Beef Sports Nutrition and Training Program.